Good with y'all niggas, man. Welcome back to another video, another reaction video on the channel. Make sure y'all like, comment, and subscribe for more content. Let's get to it. The hunt for America's deadliest hitman.
It's 1978. Jose is 16 years old. He lives with his family on a ranch near Mar, Tulare County. It's a beautiful place, surrounded by Californian vineyards. One day, his sister Cecilia has a request.
She went and told me, hey bro, can you take me to India to meet this guy? I said, sure, sister, why not?
I seen
Can you take me to India to meet this guy?
I seen this nigga, like I seen this whole jailhouse interview before.
Sure,
So I know this nigga's a fucking madman.
sister, why not?
A mad, crazy
I
scientist.
took my sister to this little house to find her stupid friend. Well, I didn't feel comfortable going inside with her. Okay, months passed by and she never came home. First, they found her car, and then they found her body.
Jose was the last person to see Cecilia alive, but when he made a witness statement,
I didn't want to give the full explanation because I want to get them. I didn't want the cops to find them. I want to find them myself. We went to this little house. We broke in there, and with M1, I shot him.
he then went on to shoot two more people who were also in the house. A cold-blooded triple homicide at the age of 16. In the following decades, Jose will kill more than 30 people. What begins with a young act of revenge ends in one of the most ruthless hitmen for the Mexican drug cartels. His victims are scattered across the entire US, and of course, in his home county of Tulare. He has taken the lives of both young
What
and
the
old,
fuck county is
drug
that?
dealers and farm workers, fathers and husbands. It will take over 30 years and police from 3 different states to bring him down. This is the story of Jose Manuel Martinez, El Mano Negra, the Black Hand, one of America's deadliest hitmen.
Shout out Fern.
We love animation and deep research, but it's expensive. That's why we have sponsors on this channel. We are grateful, bored, or overwhelmed to learn about Time is 5.
Before I ever met him, I talked to a lot of police officers, homicide detectives, murder detectives who had dealt with him. And they all said,
Hey, if y'all know some good cameras, like for the cause of course I'm gonna give me a green screen, but I want a good camera as well. Let me know some cameras in the comments as well. I want to get one by my birthday on January 6th. We just reinvent the whole channel.
the same thing, which is when you meet him, he is the most charming person you will ever meet.
This is Jessica Garrison, a journalist and author. In 2017, she met Jose in prison for a BuzzFeed News investigation and her book, The Devil's Harvest.
I hate rapists.
The perspective of his family was that he was the person in the family who always took care of them. If you were in the hospital, he was the person that would come visit you. If the hospital wouldn't let you in, he was the person that would find a way to hoist children up to the window so they could wave at you. I think he was not a person who anyone who just first met him ever suspected of being a multiple murderer.
But that's for everybody.
How
That's
does
a
polite,
murderer.
loving family man turn into a mass murderer? Martinez is born in 1962 in Fresno, California.
Fresno.
He's a U.S.
Shout out
citizen,
Fresno.
but he grows up in Mexico until the age of 11. He then moves with his family to a ranch near Mart. At the time, Tulare is the poorest county in California. His stepfather organizes laborers for the wine industry, and as a side business, deals drugs. At the age of 14,
That's because that's like in the country, like by fucking what's it called? By like Bakersfield and shit.
Martinez is sent on his first drug courier trip by bus. Later, he uses his own car. As a bilingual, US-born teenager, Martinez can easily stay under the radar of authorities. In 1977, the police raid his family's ranch. They confiscate $2.5 million worth of heroin and various weapons. Then in 1978, while his stepfather was in custody, Cecilia is murdered. Martinez said that he was a nice man until they killed his sister. Since then, he said fuck the rapers and the child molesters. So he did in 1979. His first victim is David Bedoya. A friend tells Martinez that Bedoya raped his sister. Martinez does the job for $500.
Damn, imagine your ass get whacked for $500. Even though I know it's niggas out here that's getting whacked for less. Like, it's niggas out here getting whacked for motherfucking hamburgers, carton of milk, all type of shit. I remember when I was in school growing up, I had a substitute teacher from Chicago. She said, I seen that motherfucker get killed in Chicago for a cheeseburger and a carton of milk. I'm like, bitch,
His
shut the
first
fuck up.
murder
You in
was
St.
for money.
Louis.
In 1982, he meets a man from a Mexican drug cartel, most likely Sinaloa. He only refers to him as Mr. X.
Mr. X was involved in the moving of large amounts of narcotics, drugs from, Mexico through California and to points beyond. And Mr. X, gave Mr. Martinez numerous jobs killing people.
Not every job for Mr. X is directly related to murder. Most of the time, Martinez is tasked with collecting debts from small-time drug dealers. He receives his assignment through phone calls or brief personal meetings.
A lot of it is sold on spec. I give you the drugs, you sell the drugs, you give some of the money back to me, right? But if you take the drugs and you don't give the money back to me, we have a problem. Then Jose Martinez would go and collect that money.
Martinez does end up in jail several times. For example, in 1990 because of his drug courier activities. But he is never charged with his murders. That's weird, because his name does appear in several homicide cases going back all the way to 1979.
I mean, it's fine. If you turn up in one murder case, maybe that's bad luck. 2, maybe a coincidence. 7 or 8, you gotta be like, what's happening here?
Yeah, for real.
In hindsight, it's difficult to understand why no one connected the dots back then. It will take many years and several victims before someone picks up Martinez's trail. November 2006, Martinez flies to Florida to deal with a 20-year-old named Javier Huerta. Javier is accused of stealing 10 kilograms of cocaine worth around $170,000. Martinez keeps a close eye on Huerta for a few days, and then he decides to strike.
I called Javier Huerta. They told me that you're a Missouri worker, and I want you to come so you can give me an estimate price for my house. They got in, I locked the door. When I turned out, I had my guns out. My hit the floor, and this single one I tell you. You stole 10 kilos from cocaine from me. If you don't get my money in 30 minutes, I'm gonna call my friend that is outside your house, and he's gonna shoot your family.
Martinez gets the money. $150,000 are buried in Huerta's garden. He shoots Huerta and his colleague 4 times each. He binds their hands with zip ties and puts their bodies in Huerta's truck.
So a nigga gave you the money, you still killed the nigga. I want y'all to really see my face real quick. I don't know why the nigga even. First of all, why would you even? I don't even know. Like, the nigga did some. Even though it was expected for him to do that shit.
He takes the car and drives it to the outskirts of a national park.
No, I was saying, even though it's expected for him to kill the nigga, you got the money and you still killed the nigga. Damn. That's
Smoking a
cold-blooded.
cigarette on the way. He binds their hands with zip ties and puts their bodies in Huerta's truck. He takes the car and drives it to the outskirts of a national park. smoking a cigarette on the way, perhaps to calm down. After the job, Martinez flies directly to his daughter's home in Alabama. His granddaughter is celebrating her birthday. He wants to use the money he just earned to make her happy.
I got her. I took her to Toys R Us, where a kid can be a kid. I told her, babe, because I love you with all my heart, me and you, we're gonna walk in the store, and for 1 hour, you can pick whatever you want, okay?
While Martinez is treating his granddaughter at Toys R Us, investigators in Florida discover Huerta's truck with the 2 dead bodies. They find a Mountain Dew can in the center console of the vehicle, with a cigarette butt laying in a puddle of the yellow-green liquid. They send the cigarette butt to a lab to check for DNA traces, but the test is not conducted right away. The evaluation probably isn't a big priority. Huerta was a construction worker and had many co-workers in the car with him, so investigators had little hope of a hit. In fact, the results won't reach them until years later. Martinez escapes conviction for the murder of Huerta, at least for the time being. In 2009, Martinez kills a man named Joaquin Barragan in Erlemart for $8,000. He used a woman as a lure. She brought drugs from Barragan, contacting Martinez when the meeting was set. 3 days later, Barragan's body is found under a blanket, his hands bound with zip ties. The police question many people in Erlemart about the murder. They learn that Barragan knew he was being pursued by a contract killer known as El Mano Negra, the Black Hand. A woman tells investigators that Martinez tried to hire her to lure Barragan to a remote location. Others say that El Mano Negra is in fact Martinez's nickname. The investigators don't have enough evidence against him, but they still decide to make a move. They arrest Martinez for violating probation, but when they knock on his door, he scrambles out his phone, removes the SIM card, and swallows it. Nothing else on there can incriminate him. When the police question Martinez, he claims that everyone in Erlemart is lying, and that he didn't kill Barragan. They send him to prison anyway for violating his probation terms. When Martinez gets out of prison about a half a year later, he directly marches to the Violent Crime Division of the Tulare County Sheriff's Office. He wants his white Chevy Suburban back that the police had seized from him. Martinez agrees to answer a few questions from the police in return. He hints that he is a collector for a Mexican drug cartel from Guadalajara, and he also claims to know that Barragan was murdered, not due to debts, but because he was a rat. The investigators are suspicious. They suggest a lie detector test. These aren't technically valid ways of determining a lie, but police will still often use them for investigations. Martinez agrees. He is asked several times if he knows who killed Barragan. Martinez, of course, denies that he killed him. The lie detector's response to Martinez's answers are clear. Deception is indicated. Still, the investigators' hands are tied. Without clear evidence of a confession, they can't pin Martinez down. In the end, the Black Hand once again slips from their grasp. The cigarette butt is still in the lab. The police in Florida have other cases to handle, and they forgot about those bodies in that trunk. It looks like Martinez can just keep going on forever, but then something happens in Alabama. Early 2013, 35 years after the murder of Martinez's sister, 33 years after he shot David Badella for $500, Martinez is now 51 years old. He is once again visiting his daughter in Alabama. He spends a lot of time with his grandchildren, picks them up from school, dresses them up as Disney princesses, and has spa days with them. His daughter knows he's a criminal, but she thinks he's just a smuggler who helps to bring people across the border into the US. While at her home, Martinez has an idea. He learns that a friend of his daughter's partner needs help collecting a debt. He'll help him, but in reality he just wants to learn from the friend a little bit about his daughter's partner, Jaime Romero. Is he a good guy? He meets with a friend named Jose Ruiz. In the car, Martinez asks Ruiz about his daughter's partner. Ruiz says Romero is okay, but he proceeds to call his girlfriend names and a terrible mother. He doesn't realize it's Martinez's daughter. And so Martinez decides to forgive him, realizing that we're all human on this rotating rock in the void. And naturally we can all make mistakes. He patiently tells Ruiz, "Hey, I'm her father, and that's not a kind way to speak about my daughter. No." Martinez decides that Jose Ruiz must die. But not right now. People saw them together, so he returns to California for the time being, and Ruiz is allowed a few more weeks on Earth. On March 4th, 2013, Martinez is back. He goes on a little tour with Romero and Ruiz. They stop to stretch their legs in a remote national park. Martinez pulls out a gun, points it at Ruiz, and says, "The woman you insulted is my daughter, you bastard." Then he shoots him twice in the head.
This nigga is
He
a
gets back to
fucking
the car
menace.
and tells the shocked Romero to drive and better keep this to himself. The police quickly discover the dead Ruiz and find a Walmart receipt with him. They review surveillance cameras and identify a companion of Ruiz. It's Romero. He is arrested and suspected of murder. Shortly afterwards, Martinez contacts the police, providing Romero with an alibi and claiming that they were together at the time of the killing. But the police do not believe him, and Romero remains in custody. 1 month later, Martinez is visiting his son in Erlenmeer. Suddenly, the police start banging on the door. Martinez is convinced that they are there because of him. Romero must have talked. He flees the house, and a sheriff deputy named Crystal Darrington gives chase. In reality, Martinez had nothing to fear. The police officer doesn't know a thing about the murder in Alabama. She had come to visit Martinez's son because she is investigating a series of robberies and hopes for his assistance. She apprehends Martinez and brings him to the station. A colleague whispers to Darrington that the man she brought in is El Mano Negra, supposedly a contract killer responsible for several murders in the area.
They could arrest Jose Martinez and hold him for being a felon in possession of a gun. And instead, he convinced them to let him go. And he offered to get them, get bad guns off the street. We have a lot of guns everywhere. Many of them are legal and many of them are illegal. And so the police were interested in kind of getting illegal guns. And Jose Martinez assisted them with this. They thought it was because he didn't want to get locked up. That may be true, but I think it's also because he kind of wanted to keep tabs on, he knew he'd committed this murder in Alabama. He knew he had all these other murders, and he kind of wanted to keep an eye on, did they suspect him?
As Martinez collaborates with the police in California, an unsolved case in Florida is reopened. It's from 2006. The murder is of Javier Huerta. Investigators finally received the lab report regarding the cigarette butt in the Mountain Dew they found all those years ago. They get a hit.
Damn.
DNA belongs to a man who had previously been in prison, Jose Manuel Martinez. A detective named TJ Watts takes on the murder case. At this point, Martinez is still not their primary suspect. But Watts is puzzled by why a Californian cigarette butt would turn up so far away in Florida. He contacts an investigator in California who tells him Martinez's story, that they know him, that he's been helping them collect illegal weapons, and that he's involved in several murder investigations, but that they can't prove anything against him. But then the investigator in California tells Watts a small but crucial detail. Many of the murders involve the use of zip ties. Watts is intrigued. He also has a few unsolved murders on his desk where zip ties were used. He has a strong suspicion that Martinez might be the person he's looking for. He doesn't seem as a useful informant like the colleagues in California do. Watts believes Martinez might just be a killer. He marks him as person of interest. Meanwhile, Jaime Romero is still locked up in an Alabama prison, facing accusations for the murder of his friend, Jose Ruiz. He is terrified of his father-in-law. He witnessed his cold-bloodedness firsthand, but he can't go to prison. He has a daughter and a life at home. So he calls for the man in charge, Detective McWhorter, and talks. On May 17th, the investigators finally issue an arrest warrant for Martinez on murder charges. When he returns back to the U.S. from a trip to Mexico, Martinez is arrested in Arizona. He learns that there's a warrant out for him for murder. His only question is where the warrant came from. McWhorter is the first to hear about Martinez's arrest at the border. He immediately sets off for Arizona to personally bring him back. On the way back to Alabama, they talk about life, the military, and even share a pizza at the airport. McWhorter is surprised at how little Martinez seems to care about being charged with murder. Upon arriving in Alabama, they are met by Detective Watts. He too had jumped on a plane to interrogate Martinez. Neither detective expects Martinez to confess, Perhaps he would spend time in jail and then make a mistake during a phone call from inside. At best, Martinez might admit to being at the crime scene, but try to blame everything on Romero. But things take a different turn. Martinez confesses almost immediately to killing Ruiz. He also confesses to the murder case in Florida. He provides detailed descriptions of the crime scenes, the number of bullets used, and says, "If I hadn't done the job, someone else would have." But it doesn't end there. Martinez then asks for Crystal Darrington, the deputy sheriff from Tulare. When she arrives in Alabama, he drops a bombshell. He's a contract killer and has killed numerous people. He goes on to confess to one murder after another.
Shot him in the head. Okay, 22.
Took my gun and I shot him inside the car in the leg.
I even killed her brother.
I feel like he exposed himself because in all reality, bro, you're not supposed to take another life. You know what I'm saying? If it's not like self-defense or some shit like that. So you taking all these lives, that shit eating at your conscience, bro. So you gotta let that shit out, you know? Just like when you sad, you cry, you know? You have to let out the emotions some way, somehow. And this nigga just told himself. He said, bro, I'm tired of being a free man. I'm about to tell myself. So
It was a
that shit
long
kind of
list.
crazy.
I mean, Crystal Darrington said that she was just like frantically texting her bosses, like, "Oh my god, another one!" And then like I think the next day he's like, "Oh my gosh, I have another one." So it was a shocking list of murderers.
He confesses to over 35
Damn,
murders.
what the hell, my lighter
Today,
just
it
went.
is thought to be over 40.
They went back and reinvestigated all of them. Like, they didn't just take his word for it and tried to make sure it was true. And ultimately, they decided that they believed it.
Martinez is brought to trial for most, but not all of his murders. Some cases couldn't be resolved. At the time, he even faces the death penalty, which doesn't seem to worry him.
I know I'm gonna go to electric chair. I can go if I die tomorrow.
In the end, Martinez is sentenced to 50 years in prison in Alabama for the murder of Ruiz, life in prison without the possibility of parole in California for 9 murders, and 2 consecutive life sentences in Florida.
Nigga ain't never getting out.
Martinez
Needless to
certainly
say.
didn't make it easy for the police. He left few traces, often there were no concrete pieces of evidence, and as a hitman, there were usually no direct connections between him and his victims. Especially in the 80s and 90s, police in California had a lot of murders to deal with. They had limited resources. But there is also another reason why Martinez wasn't caught for so long.
There are other people who would say, well, he didn't try that hard to get it, in part because the people that he was killing were not people that created these giant outcry. He was generally killing people without very much power.
Yeah.
And so I think that was
That just goes to show, once y'all kill a motherfucker with power, Nipsey, anybody with power, we ain't gonna talk about race. Anybody, black, white, Mexican, Puerto Rican, Indian, anybody, Asian, all that. The narrative changes. You killing nobody, but you kill somebody. For example, you kill a nobody in Chicago, you can be sitting in jail for the murder charge forever. But you kill somebody like FBG Doug, big people, you're gonna be investigated.
Heartbreaking things to me when I started working on this is that I went and found some of the family members of some of his victims, and many of them said over and over, like, it seems like no one cared that our relative was killed. And so I think that to me was sort of the craziest and most heartbreaking part of this case.
That's crazy. That is crazy. Make sure y'all niggas like, comment, and subscribe. Follow my other channel in the description. We taking over this YouTube shit, man. Y'all see I uploading hella buku. I'm talking buku videos a day. Like, nigga, y'all gonna see my face. More y'all gonna see our family face at this point. Because I'm fucking with this shit. Like I said, like, comment, subscribe. It's a 24-minute video. That shit crazy.